Let's bring Bill in right now. Guys, listen. There's really nothing I need to say about this fucking dude. One of the funniest dudes going, without a doubt. We got a chance to spend a couple days hanging out a couple years back in Boston at the roast of David Ortiz. It was a ton of fun. Everybody, please help me welcome Bill Burr. Bill, what's going on, man?
How are you, sir? It finally happened.
You good, dude? I can't hear you.
Of course you can't hear me. Why would any of my shit ever?
There
Hello.
we go. There we go. There we
Hey,
go.
how are you? It
What's
said I
going
didn't
on,
have
dude?
the
How are you?
latest version of my stupid phone thing, so I don't know if this is going to work.
It works fine, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Are you picking up a southern drawl out there already?
Nah, when I smoke weed, I hold on to my vowels for a long time.
Oh, all right. I was gonna say you don't sound like you.
No, I have lost a little bit. For whatever reason, I'm losing my voice a little bit, so I'm super scratchy today. But I feel good, dude. Now, let me ask you something. First of all, how are you? How's your family?
Everybody's great. Everybody's great. Yeah, I'm having a good time being, dad, just being around the house. It's been great. I love it.
How old is your kid?
I got a 4 and a 7-month.
Can I ask you a question, man? I'm so
Can
curious.
I ask you a question, man? I just hit a blunt, and I was wondering, what kind of Doritos do you get? I'm eating a slice of pizza, dude. I'm like,
get in it, man.
Diapers and shit,
Dude, I remember people ask me why I eat so fast. I eat fast because I had to feed kids, which means I had to eat standing up. Do you know what I mean? Like I learned to eat.
Half your meal is finishing what they didn't eat, and that's how you get the dad bod.
Exactly right. Now, I like asking people this because for me, I remember somebody asked me when I was when my kids were younger, and I was like, wow, what would you say you hope your kids get from you, and what would you say you hope they don't get from you? Besides, don't say something like your face or whatever the fuck. But do you know what I mean?
Oh, I didn't know you were going to dictate my answers on this. Jesus. You were all hippy dippy in LA. You smoke a little weed in Nashville. All of a sudden, you tell me what to say. I'm fucking with you. What do I hope that they get from me? I guess, and I didn't have this when I was their age, drive to go and belief to go and think that you can do what you want for a job, I guess. What wouldn't I want them to get from me? Only one thing? There's a long list. My temper.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is that for me, what I hoped they got from me was also what I hoped they didn't get from me. Do you like? I hope my kids.
Your metabolism.
What's that?
Your metabolism.
Yeah, I hope they get them.
It's kept you in shape, but you could only get so big. And I know you probably came up in the 80s and 90s, and you felt your biceps were less than some other people. But now you just look like this shredded.
Let me tell you something, Bill. When I was in high school in the 80s in Western Mass, and we used to we had an old mall and a new mall. I don't even remember what their real names were. We called them the new mall and the old mall, right?
Right.
And man, at the old mall, they used to always tease me about how skinny my arms were. Oh, they were like, don't come back to the old mall. But they used
you got new mall arms.
Listen, I remember my brother used to work at Chess King. Do you remember Chess King? That store at the mall?
Dude, anybody who shopped at Chess King fingered their first chick within those 2 weekends. Second you got those skinny ties, those little dance shoes, and you put the mousse in your hair, you were fucking in there.
My brother had that bar.
Dude, he got third base off of Debbie. Chess King. I haven't heard about that in forever.
Yeah, well, my brother used to work there, so I used to get 15% off. So I was going into Chess King, and but they I remember I was like, because Chess King was at the new mall, it wasn't at the old mall, You know, the old mall had like Papagenos. And did you guys have
Chess
Papagenos?
King was for that white kid who had a little flavor.
Yeah.
He was
I don't
in
know
the
if you know this
suburbs, but
man.
he had an urban feel.
I
But he
I
still
went through a
lived
little
in a cul-de-sac. But he was and the
my
suburban white chicks loved it. Couldn't get enough of it.
Bill, I was in a breakdancing group in high school. We were the
I don't doubt it.
Jamhurst Breakers. Oh
Jamhurst
yeah.
Breakers. Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, the Jamhurst Breakers. And we used to go up to the roller skating rink at the mall, New Mall. And they used to
Did
have
you show
breakdancing
people what's up?
big time. You know, I would. Yo, you want to go in the parking lot and do a little battle? Oh, you think I was scared of doing a little battle, Bill?
So when you saw Bring It On, were you like, fuck? Why didn't I write that movie? I lived that movie.
I remember going and watching Electric Boogaloo. You know that was in '80s, like mid '80s, right? But we went as a group. You know, the breakdancing group went together. We were like, we should go see this together so we can look at some moves. Oh yeah, and the dude who was like the manager of our group, he was always like writing things down. Now you should do the backspin. It is I'm happy but also sad that there isn't at least one video of me in my, you know, because we used to go to Cape Cod in the summer sometimes, and they used to air spray those t-shirts, you know. And so I got everybody in the breakdance group one of those air spray t-shirts with their nicknames on it. So I had a sleeveless one that said J Rock. And
Hell
yep.
yeah. None of this is embarrassing. I don't think it is. This is all like, yeah. Now let me
Was there
ask you this: in your career as a dancer, did you do more serving or did you get served more when you went out to the parking lot at the new mall outside of Chess King?
I would say
let's dance for skinny leather ties.
I would say that I got served more than I was serving. I was not.
Were you a gracious loser? Did you kind of
No.
go like shake the
No.
hand afterwards? Or would you get mad? Did you learn from your losses?
No, I was not a gracious loser, and I was a great shit talker. So people always thought I was going to be better than I was
You were
because
J-Rock, man.
I was J-Rock, dude. Did you go through an unfortunate phase at all in high school? Like, did you go through one that was just terrible?
I don't think it's unfortunate that you went through that phase. I actually think that white kids that were listening to that way back in the 80s and were saying, no, this is good. Because when that Electric Boogaloo came out, we watched that movie and laughed and thought it was ridiculous. Like I didn't get anything. And like, I'm just like, oh, these people are crazy. What are they spinning around on their heads for? And just the way they were talking, the whole thing just sounded like hilarious to me. It was a comedy to me, not like this really like, I was so far away from it that it played as a comedy. And then years later, you know, you go back and look back, it's like, no, dude, this was like a artistic revolution that was going to go global. And
you know,
no, I was into metal, and the only reason why I didn't grow long hair was because my hair grew out like an afro. So that's the only reason why I didn't have a mullet. I tried to grow a mullet, and I wouldn't have, and it would just keep curling up like a fucking shade you can't pull down. It would just just keep going up.
Did you now in high school we called a mullet a soccer cut. We didn't call it a mullet. Like
we called it the hockey do, or it was the schlong.
Hockey do. Yeah.
Yeah. The hockey haircut, schlong, or something short in the front, long in the back.
And to see, because I remember going to those hockey games in high school and watching it, and every dude had just that curl coming out of the bottom of his helmet, where the mullet was sticking out. Did you play hockey in high school?
No, I got a D in math in 5th grade, and that was the end of my my sports career, where my parents felt that sports was taking too much away from my studies. And little did they know that it didn't matter because I still flunked everything. So I played a lot of, I actually had a lot of fun with sports growing up. I think because it wasn't organized, I definitely missed out on a lot. because of learning how to work with other people, and then also having adults teaching you fundamentals of all those great games that we have. And but I played pond hockey and basketball, football, baseball. It was New England. It was the 4 seasons. What sucked was I just remember playing hoop outside, watching the Celtics play in the 76ers. You'd want to go out and play, and it'd always be cold as shit. Your fingers were cold. Like we never thought, but we never thought to play basketball, me and my friends, in the summertime until we got older. Because it was like the Red Sox were on, so we would be playing baseball, wiffle ball. What was that? Pitcher's poison. Remember that shit?
Yeah.
Did you play those games?
When you played wiffle ball? Did you play like? Because we played a ton of wiffle ball growing up. But did you play with like people in the field and shit, like actual games where you ran bases, or did you just have?
No, they had to be like a fence and shit. And we had like trees with foul lines and all that type of thing. We got into it. Then we got older, you go to the little league parks, you do like the home run derbies.
Yeah.
And you have guys play against each other. It was really something socially that there's a lot of things that, when I look at young kids, I think, oh, that's really cool that they have that. But then there's other things that I think that socially, even adults now are missing out. Like me and my wife last night, we're laying in bed and we didn't say anything for 20 minutes. We're just like looking at our phones, looking at nothing other than that Animaniacs clip, which is the fucking most brilliant thing I ever saw. Did you see that?
I haven't seen that.
You remember that Animaniacs song?
Oh yeah.
We're Animaniacs. Da, 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 da. We're Animani, totally zany. And then they cut to this woman who was at the Capitol. She goes, they push me and they tase me. Animaniacs. Let's watch the show. And then there's that little roll with the drums where it goes, and she went like, like, it was so fucking brilliant that somebody's musical ear, that when they saw that clip, I mean, it was really like, it was a brilliant piece of comedy. I mean, aside from whatever your political belief is. By the way, what the fuck is Antifa? I just know whenever some shit goes down and somebody doesn't want to say that was our color tie, everybody goes, that was Antifa.
Yeah.
I'm going to start using that with my wife. You be sure that was Antifa.
Antifa put an empty milk carton back in the fridge. I don't know. That's their move. I will, dude, the thing that got me the pepper spray woman made me laugh, but what made me laugh the most of some of the images, and some of the images are obviously horrific, but who decides they're going to lead a revolution dressed like an Ewok? Like, who's like, hey, who should we send to be our representative? Let's send Jeff.
But you have to be that level of crazy to do something like that, I would think. Now, here's the thing. I haven't watched any of it, and I sort of just joked around about the thing on my podcast, and I was surprised. Like, there was not a bunch, but there was like a dozen people maybe. Really, I started my podcast. I was like, it takes a lot. I joke around a lot on this podcast, and it takes a lot to upset me. But I have to be honest. What I saw yesterday, it was disgusting, and it broke my heart. Those uniforms that the Miami Heat were wearing against the Boston Celtics flew in the face of everybody who fought for this country. I just felt triggered. I feel like the owner of the Heat owes me an apology. And I just did that shit, right? Yeah. Because what the fuck? I mean, do you want me to like legit talk about it? It's like, I'm a clown. I'm a comedian. If you want to see people talking about it, well, you want to watch that shit? Go fucking put on CNN Fox, who I think should have taken their responsibility in what they do, which is divide America 24/7, 365. That's all they do.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing. And,
Bill.
And the people that I know that watch those channels are fucking like, I got to close the door here. My somebody comes over my house, watches CNN, so I'll walk by every once in a while, and when I watch that channel, I get like anxiety. Then I go outside, I'm like, it's all right. Everything's okay. The sky isn't falling.
No, but news is a business based in fear. So you're not selling tickets to happy, but nothing gets people motivated, man, like somebody saying, hey, somebody's coming to take something you already have. that to me, fear is the motivator. So if I'm a news channel and I want people to watch my channel, I got to get them scared about something.
Yeah.
So
As
they
much
will
as they said that they were upset, they were psyched. That was like an easy news day.
Great.
I only saw a little bit of it. I didn't watch any like, I wasn't going to look at that and be like, yep, that's what a conservative is like. It's like, no, that's a fucking lunatic. It's like they got lunatics on the left. I just watch old movies now. I've been watching a lot of just old fucking movies. I just do that. My wheelhouse is 60s and 70s, but a lot of 60s lately. I like I saw Once Upon a Time in the West. Somehow I missed that growing up. Oh my God, what a movie. And I saw all the other ones. Sergio Leone, I think his name is, that did all of those. And then I've been watching some bunch of French movies and shit.
Why are you were you ever a Western fan?
Oh, I loved them growing up.
Me too.
I was Magnificent Seven, Fistful of Dollars, The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. For
Why
a
do
few
you think
dollars more, Outlaw Josie Wales.
all good? Unforgiven?
I wasn't a big like.
Did you watch Unforgiven?
You know, I don't think I ever saw that one. For some reason, I just never saw that. I know it's fucking great because that's the closure of that character. So I want to go back and watch all of those ones again, and then watch The Unforgiven. I feel like the amount of work that Clint and everybody put into that, I owe it to that character, to not just watch the conclusion and then go back. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of that, and Criterion Channel. Like I've watched like a student film that had all black actors in it from like the late 60s in LA. And the sound was terrible. The editing was terrible, but it was fascinating. And I watched a Chinese one from 1967 in black and white. And one of the scenes was a bunch of married guys sitting around talking about their sex lives in 1967. And the shit they were talking about it just sounded like guys over here. This was 50 years ago, all the way over in China. And I would rather watch shit like that to see similarities.
Yeah.
Rather than sit there and watch 24-hour news networks where I'm going to have a fucking gun in my mouth or pointed it at somebody else. Because I am a sort of a recovered conspiracy theorist. I still believe a lot of my conspiracies, but I just made peace with them that, human beings, we are incredibly flawed.
Yeah.
Like I'm having major issues with like a higher power judging. It's like, at some point, are you going to take responsibility for your own work here? Like if you like somebody's like born a sociopath. They don't like make the decision that I'm going to become a sociopath. Like I feel like the devil is like a scapegoat sort of to try to explain away all of this shit. Well, God gave us freedom of choice and blah, 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 and all of this type of shit. And I just,
Bill,
I would understand if individually you paid for your actions, but just the amount of innocent, great people that end up crossing paths with some broken toy of a human being, and what ends up happening to them, and they did nothing fucking wrong, is where I have, that's the grand expanse that I've never been able to come back to a religion that made sense to me, because since I had kids, I'm like, oh, okay, this is like making me feel there's something going on here that religion doesn't have the ability to explain in a way, at least that I understand it, or maybe I'm too stupid to understand it. Who knows?
Did you grow up in a religious house?
Yes.
Like
not like Mother Mary on the wall, but like there was a time I had a Cal Ripken Jr. streak of like I didn't miss mass for about 17 years. Even
as
like
an adult too?
into my 20s, dude. Like I would go out and get fucking hammered and drag my hungover ass to like 7:30 mass because he didn't want the later ones, and they started singing and shit. It took fucking ever.
I will tell you, as a Jew, obviously I never went to mass, and I found first of all, I found it more enjoyable than going to temple just because I could understand all the words. I remember growing up thinking, what how do you know what the fuck they're saying? Like,
Oh, you're saying you enjoyed going to mass more than temple, or you enjoyed?
at first I enjoyed going to mass because I more than temple because I understood the words. Like
Oh,
I
until they got to the part where they said the Jews killed Christ. You're like,
yeah.
maybe temple wasn't that bad.
Yeah, that's when I was like, oh, got it.
Wrong dojo.
I will tell you, man, I think in a oddly similar way, conspiracy theory, and please, folks, I don't think there's anything bad with religion. The one thing I think that is very positive, I do think there's some bad. I think the thing that is positive is that it gives people a place to gather with a sense of community. And I always think that's good. Now, when that community starts to go down a squirrely path and starts to say, preach violence or any shit like that, that's terrible. But I like that it gives people hope in a sense of faith, right? I think that's a good thing. However, the one thing that I think that religion and conspiracy theories have in common is the boogeyman. Like, you're just allowed to blame something that you can't see or that is bigger than you to make you feel better, or
Right.
not blame, or to, you know what I mean, to invoke. And
I feel like religion is a lot of it's like, you ever click on something going, you're like, there's a food out there that'll actually give you a flat stomach in 12 minutes. And over the next half hour, I'm going to tell you what this is. And after a while, you're like, just fucking say what it is. What is it? And then there's never the answer. I always end up tapping out before I can get to, why is this taking a half hour for you to say bananas or fucking pickled something or other? Like, anyway, I feel like religion is like that, where it's like you get in here, God's gonna love you, we're gonna explain the universe, and over the next blah 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 blah, and it's just they never get to the whole. I don't know. It's just like, that's you gotta have faith, and you gotta blah 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 blah. And it's like, faith is, listen, you don't know what happens. I used to say this in my act. You don't know what happens. Nobody knows what happens until they die.
Right.
And I remember seeing a thing right now. Somebody was talking about this where their grandmother used to say when somebody died, saying they know the secret. They know the secret because they just died, so they know what happens. And that's what I think about all my friends that have died. I've lost so many fucking friends, man. It's terrible. But I always think that, like, they all know.
Yeah.
They all know what happens.
Do you? It's funny, you've actually lost a bunch of comedy friends too, like a bunch. I was actually
mostly comedy friends. Fortunately, unfortunately, I mean, I've lost. Geez, I don't know how many classmates from high school and stuff, but I keep a list. I have all the names written down. I always look back and look so I'll remember them and stuff because each one of those people, we had good times, we had laughs and stuff like that. And I'll tell you, like I forget what the number is. It's something crazy. It's like up to like 50 or 60 people at this point, and or 40, 50, something like that. And
that's a ton.
Say there's 45, 44 of them are men.
Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, yeah, it's like, it's, yeah.
I was actually, dude.
I don't know why that is.
And by the way,
oh, actually, probably because I don't really have any female friends.
By the way, a lot of people in the chat are loving you on Mandalorian, man, just so you know.
Oh, yeah, I got to thank Jon Favreau, Rick Famuyiwa, who wrote and directed. He did both the episodes that I did, and I'm dying to do, something else with either one of those guys. If I don't know if they'll ever bring my character back or whatever, but that was Jon Favreau's idea, and the guys in the writers' room when they wrote that character, Mayfeld. They were like, they kind of had, I guess they had me in mind. It's not like I auditioned and beat out a bunch of people. I was lucky enough that they liked my comedy. So,
but you auditioned for Breaking Bad, right?
Yes, I did, and I think I read for because they just gave me sides from episodes they already shot. So I think I read some of Badger's sides, like it was Jesse's friends.
Yeah, Badger's one of my favorite characters in any show. That dude was absolutely bananas. But I think you probably read my friend who grew up in a town next to me in Massachusetts in Northampton was a woman named Sherry Thomas, and I think Sherry cast Thomas Bialy, probably cast Breaking Bad, and she loves using comics. Like she She had a bunch of
Oh,
comics on Breaking
thank
Bad.
God. Because I was always wondering, because there was a lot of comics on that show. I remember at one point we were doing a scene, and it was me, Lavelle Crawford, and Bob Odenkirk. So, he played Saul. I played Kubi and Huel. And what was cool was a quick little scene before Mr. White came in. So I was already sitting there going like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm in Saul Goodman's office. And it was my favorite show. And it was like being, sitting in the diner on Seinfeld or being at Arnold's on Happy Days, whatever show
Yeah.
you were into, right? And the top of the scene, happens. It's just a little back and forth. I think we were talking about that guy, Ted Beneke. And I remember right before we did the scene, I go, what's fucking cool? This is the best drama on television right now. And for like these 8 seconds at the top of this scene, there's nothing but stand-up comedians driving the
Yeah.
ship.
Yeah.
Then of course
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston came in and it was just like, all right, that's an actor.
But you know what Sherry told me once? I interviewed her once. And she, by the way, she got me my SAG card. I was on Home Improvement. I had a line. I remember, man, when I got that gig, I was single, raising the 3 kids, and we were all living in one room. And my biggest perk was that wardrobe said I could take the shoes home with me. And I was like, I can keep these shoes. And they were like, yeah. I was like, come on.
That's
But
huge.
I remember thinking that very first set I was on, how different it was from stand-up. Like I went in thinking, oh, I do stand-up. This is going to be easy. I perform in front of people. And I remember saying other people's words, for me anyways, is so much harder. It's so much more difficult. And the responsibility, or not responsibility, but what I'm trying to get out of the people who are watching is so different than what I'm trying to get out of the people watching my stand-up, that I remember like I have to change my approach altogether, because for me, comedy isn't about listening, and acting is all about that, listening to what is happening around you.
Yeah, no, it's completely inverse. Yeah, and stand up, if anybody says anything, you tell them to shut the fuck up, and then you go into acting. It's like you gotta listen. So then when you're doing like that comedy thing, it's like, okay, I did comedy, but I wasn't in a comedy team. So you have to learn how, okay, so it's in this part, I'm doing the setup. So I need to lob this over the net so you can crush it. Or the other way around, like, how to do the punchline. So I used to watch, Jeffrey Tambor was a guy that I got a lot out of when he was on Larry Sanders' show. I got a lot out of watching him, where it's like this guy is not trying to be funny at all. He's just playing the scene, and he believes everything that he's saying. Like Jeffrey Tambor in the Larry Sanders show was such a high watermark for me, as far as like just how complex that character was. Just to be that level of success, but not quite Larry.
Yeah.
Dealing with that, and to be like, I don't know, he just had like this thing where it was like he had the ego of a guy on a show, and also that Grand Canyon of insecurity. And the way he did it was just so believable and funny, and just watching him basically fighting for respect. Like, and just think of the mind fuck of that you're on a TV show, the biggest talk show, right? Of that time, and you're famous and you're on it, but people still don't respect you. Like what that would do to you, to be like, what the fuck do I have to do? Like I've seen that with like comics, where a lot of us had the classic childhood recipe that makes you need to be a comedian, right?
Right.
And your thing is, I'm going to get on stage, I'm going to make people laugh, people are going to think I'm funny, and the world's going to stop fucking with me. And then you reach the apex of your career, and there's this backlash, like some of those comics that have just gotten backlash.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh wait, I was trying to leave high school behind, and now I have a national high school of people on the internet. Like now I feel like I'm walking into a cafeteria. There's no place for me to sit. And now it's the entire country. Like just this, I don't know how that happens, but there's like a few comics that I've seen go through that where it just became open season on them.
Yeah. Especially now, man.
And a few brought it on themselves, running their yaps too much. I should talk, but other people, it was just that they were just sort of did a nicer act, weren't really edgy, but that wasn't who they were, and they found their audience and they were living their dream. And these cunts on the internet, because it wasn't pushing any buttons, rather than just moving on,
Yeah.
they were like, they literally like, oh, you're the person I'm going to take my childhood out on. Let's all
You,
gang up on this person. I've seen it happen to actors, and just
well, it's easy,
it's a
dude.
weird thing. It's a
It's
weird
the
thing.
mob mentality. But you know what's funny is you basically just described my comedy journey in that. I remember watching guys like you and Patrice and guys who had a bit of an edge and a bit of an anger to them, right? And I always remember thinking, I want to. That's how I want to deliver my material. And then it took me a bunch of years to realize I'm not an angry dude. So
No, you're not, and I'm envious of that. Patrice wasn't angry either. Anybody who's watching, Patrice was not angry.
Patrice to me, if he is not on your Mount Rushmore of stand up, you're not watching stand up. I watched a bunch of his
that's
clips.
another thing with my higher power thing. It's like, why take that guy? What that guy could have done
right
and
now,
taught people.
Right now.
Oh, come on. Like since he's gone, like the whole Me Too thing right up to this Trump shit. I mean,
his
he did 20 minutes one time about Martha Stewart going to jail. It was one of the funniest fucking things I ever saw. At Caroline's in front of like 30 people.
Was he funny? Off the cuff funny? Like just getting on stage and just talking?
No, it was a fucking show, dude. It was just a show. And he just took breaks doing stand up. The show was him off stage. It was all the same. It just bled in. It just didn't stop. I remember hearing like Prince would play like fucking, he would play, Running Dates at the Forum. And then the last night he'd go to like the House of Blues and just jam. That's just what he was. He was a musician. He didn't give a fuck how many people were there, what style of music. And he would just do it because he loved it, to get better, to just fuck with people. That, hey, was that Prince up there with that bluegrass band or some shit, whatever. But like, I think Patrice was the same way, where he was I've said this on a million interviews. Like, I remember one point watching him fuck with like the 15th millionth person out on the street, and it was so funny. And then this sadness came over me, because I was just like, someday he's going to be famous, and he's not just going to be this guy that, like, nobody knew that he was a comedian, that he was one of the best comics out there. They just didn't know who he was. And there's that great period that I got to see, and I was just there's going to be a day where, that fame thing, there people are going to expect it. Like, oh, see, he's doing the thing. That's what he does on the blah, blah, blah. So I was just like, really sitting there. I remember in that moment just going like, I need to enjoy this, because this guy is going to be so fucking huge. I mean, that guy.
What do you think it was
the
about
level
him?
of funny and profound that I saw, that he made a lot of people that were way beyond him just would become either totally enamored by him or like really intimidated, and like try to bully their way into it, so they realized that he was this unstoppable force.
Was it because he was so free on stage? Because he didn't have one, he was, he was so conversational, which to me is the goal, right? To me, the goal is is to just be conversational and for me to talk, and then for the audience as part of the conversation to be the laughter, right?
That if that's the style you want to do, yeah. Because
Yeah, for
I
me.
love joke writers too. Yeah, okay.
I took a job, Bill, writing for Foxworthy on Are You Smarter Than Fifth Grader, because I know how to tell a story, but my joke writing skills were always really not as sharp, and I remember taking that job to go, okay, I'm gonna have to write at least one joke about every question. So and they're gonna have to be in Foxworthy's voice. And so there's gonna be a great exercise for me. And I remember part of my contract, because the pay was nothing, was in the contract was that Foxworthy had to talk to me about comedy every lunchtime. That was the deal. If I had comedy questions, he had to sit and talk to me. And we had the same manager at the time. But I remember taking that job and writing jokes, and at the end of it thinking, yeah, this is a completely different skill, that skill set, that like that Larry the Cable Guy kind of cadence, you know what I mean, is just something that I just don't have.
That happens to me with like roast jokes.
You've said that when we did
if I have to sit down and write a roast joke, I have like a whole ritual I have to do.
What is it?
I sit out on my back porch. I smoke a cigar. Back in the day, I'd have a little booze, but I just start talking to myself. And I start talking shit, because that's how I do jokes. Is I just look and I start talking. So I was finding that sitting down going like, okay, David Ortiz is here. I just didn't do that. I was picturing myself sitting across from him, breaking his balls.
Yeah.
So that's how I had to do it. So it was very conversational. And I just sort of had my recorder on. And then in these little things I was doing, then came like stuff, and then came like an order. And then I would run them by, I really like, I've done a few things. I've written jokes for, I recently got to do it for an athlete. I'm not going to say the names or anything like that. I always feel weird.
Yep.
Like that's some locker room shit. I keep it in there, but I've done that. And it ends up becoming this fun hang, because what I do is if I get the gig, I then call up two of my buddies who are also huge sports fans. And it's just like, all right, I'll give you guys some of this money they're giving me, and let's just all hang out and write fucking jokes about, like, the Minnesota Vikings or the whatever you're supposed to be making fun of. And it just becomes this, we feed off of each other, and we're just laughing our balls off. And a lot of the shit we're pitching, we know they're not going to use. But then what happens is all of a sudden you're just in that mindset. And it's the weirdest thing. And for like 2 days after the gig, I can't shut it off. All of a sudden, I'm like this joke. Hey, let me tell you my wife. Okay, I'm not saying she's a bad cook, but hey, all of a sudden I'm in that mindset. I'm like, wow. So
that weekend in Boston was a ton of fun, man. That was a good hang. We got to do we Bill and I and a couple other people, Adam Ray, Sarah Tiana, Lenny Clark,
who wore the fucking Legoland yellow pants.
By the way, Lenny's ripped. Lenny looked jacked.
Lenny, dude, that guy. One of the most amazing things he ever did was become fat. That guy is so fucking, like, his idol is like third gear for anybody else. He's the funniest. He's the only guy I've ever seen smoke a cigar and not look relaxed. He's like, he's lighting another cigar with it. I was like, this guy had to be a comedian. This guy, if you stuck this dude in a cubicle, he'd be climbing the fucking walls, pushing him over.
He told me once, he referred to a certain part of his comedy career as the sweatpant years, because he said he was so big, he could just wear sweatpants.
That fucking guy, I remember a couple times in the early 90s, you were just like, God, he's not seeing the end of this decade. And then all of a sudden, he got off of that wheel, and ever since then, now I'm sitting. The fucking guy can do like 20 pull-ups.
I know, jacked. But Bill, the same thing for me. Joey Diaz and I started together, in Seattle. Me and Joe and Brody, and Joe's lived in my house a bunch, and we go back a long time. And I remember talking with him openly about telling him, there's no way you reach 50 years old, dude. There's no way. You know, I think he was at one
Let me
point.
tell you something, cocksucker.
But at his heaviest, he was over 400 pounds, Bill. Over 400.
No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He was a big fucking dude.
Wow.
And he was, do you know, so just like Lenny, he has no middle ground. He went from not smoking cigarettes ever a day in his life to smoking a pack and a half a day. The first day he smoked cigarettes, he smoked a pack and a half.
Oh, wow.
So that's,
Wow.
you know, that's who he is. But I
Right.
remember
but that's also why his comedy's so great. Because if he's going to do a subject, you know, he's smoking the whole pack. You know what I mean? He's not going to sit there and just be like, well, this is kind of interesting.
No, he's not leaving anything on the table at all.
Yeah.
Do you know, I remember when we started with him, and I don't know if you know anybody that you started with that did this. Brody and him were the same in that when they were doing their actual jokes, they were bombing. And they didn't kill until they got so mad that they were bombing that they just started to become themselves. And as soon as they started, like as soon as Brody was bombing one night, and he bombed in a unique way that like nobody bombed like him. And he went into this thing about, he was like, you know, you guys aren't laughing, but he said, I'm a little anxious tonight. He was like, do you know how hard it is for a single man to shave his own back? He said, I have trouble spots. And he turned around and he lifted up his shirt and he had like patches of hair on his back where you could see he couldn't reach with his hand. And I was like, oh, this dude's fucking crazy. But when he did shit like that, it blew it up. But when he wrote jokes, he was like a completely, both of them were completely, their jokes made them seem like completely different people than who they actually were. When Joey went off, listen here, cocksuckers, that's some funny fucking, people went crazy. But like his
I think, Brody's one of those guys, you know, where I don't know how many thousands of times I saw him do stand up, but I can't remember anything other than laughing my ass off and looking at another comedian going like, just being like, can you believe this shit? Like he really was just doing his own thing. I think the thing about that, it's a weird thing where they're not traditional comedians.
Right.
But they're fucking hilarious. So they almost have to go up and go, all right, here's stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And then they try that. There was a guy, Nick Costas was like that out of Boston. He had these jokes, but you know, they would do okay or whatever. But when he got frustrated or somebody fucking heckled him and he snapped, one of my favorite things ever when I was coming to the Boston scene was when a buddy of mine would call me up and be like, dude, Nick fucking snapped tonight at Dick Doherty's comedy campus in Kenmore Square. And I mean, oh my God, what happened? What happened? And it was always got a goddamn flying him. It's always
you know what's funny? People,
and it's nothing too like I have a story of that guy snapping, but I don't even know how to make it funny. It was the way he did it. He was on stage and he had finally gotten his own room. Okay, and they started a room and they wanted to make him the host.
He was booking a room.
Yeah, so they had him book the room, but it was like one of those guys that I think it was Dick Doherty. He had like all these satellite rooms, so they had this downtown, Kenmore Square, I think it was Comedy Campus. And they Comedy Campus thinking that this would get all these college kids in there. So we show up the first night and there's like fucking, I don't know, it's like 12 people in the crowd kind of spread out. And he goes up to warm them up and he doesn't get them. He just sort of eats it. Then he brings up the first comic. The first comic goes up there and just, you know, gets him going. It's going good, blah, blah, blah. And he, all right, thanks a lot, back to Nick. So then Nick comes back up on stage immediately. It's not going well again. They're just not getting him, right? So this goes on the whole fucking show. So I think Fitzsimmons had driven up from New York and he was driving back that night. So he said to him, he goes, look, Nick, we got plenty of show, man. If it's not happening for you, just start bringing up the acts. And that fucking pissed Nick off because Nick was fucking hilarious. It just wasn't happening for him. So he went up on stage again and he starts doing his act and it's not working. And I can see in his forehead, he's going to fucking snap. He does another joke. It just fucking lays there. And he just finally goes, you know what the fuck? What the fuck kind of jokes do you fucking people want? This guy goes, how about some funny jokes? He goes, yeah, funny how? Funny how, huh? Like things going in and out of your ass? And the way he said it, I still can't do it. He said it with such vile and hatred in his voice. You actually pictured this guy's asshole puckering up as he was shoving shit into it. And the whole crowd, horrified. And me and Fitzsimmons were in the back, just fucking, just dying. And I remember, dude, that guy was a fucking lunatic. I remember one time we were doing this gig. It was down near Northeastern. And it was this downstairs bar that had, you know, those shitty, like, push-up ceilings, like when your buddy would finish his basement? They had like that. And for whatever fucking reason, they had a lifeguard chair down there that was, like, made all out of wood. I don't know. It was probably for some other stupid event. And everybody was going up on stage, making fun of the giant, you know, lifeguard chair. They bring Nick up, and he had the presence of mind to climb up it and sit in it like a sit-down comic. So now he was going to be like 9 feet in the fucking air. So he's climbing up. He used to wear a sport coat too, with these fucking Son of Sam shoes and no socks. And he's climbing up this fucking thing like an ape. And he's tall as shit. So when he gets up to the top of it, his head disappears into the ceiling and then comes back down again, standing up there. And then he crosses his legs like he's sitting in somebody's backyard on a lawn chair. Fucking murdered. It didn't matter what he said. Like the whole crowd, he didn't even say hello. He just started climbing this thing, and people just were holding the mic, and he's trying to get up there in this dumbass suit. So he, like that guy, like when crowds got him, I mean, I don't think there was anybody funnier. Like he was like one of those comic guys, and then like Brody was like that, where it was just like, I remember when he passed and there was so many, not so many, but I got to know, dude, I watched this guy's clip. This guy isn't funny. It's like, dude, because this isn't it. This isn't what he did. Like they never really captured what he did. Although the Zach Galifianakis show that he did on Comedy Central was the closest thing.
Yeah.
Like those are guys it's like, dude, you can't just see this guy once. You can't watch him on TV. This is a guy you have to go to the club.
Yeah.
And you have to get to where his brain is at. And then once that you guys are on the same frequency, it's like you push through the matrix, and this guy's going to make you laugh like no fucking comedian.
100% you had to see Brody live. There was no doubt about it. 100% you had to see him live. And so for me with Brody, what was, you know how you said he's not a traditional comic, because he actually had you laughing at things that if you looked at, if say he wrote his punchlines down on a piece of paper, you might not be able to pick out the punchline. Like the fact that he got a laugh off of his GPA, right? He would tell you what classes he took at Arizona State and what his GPA was. And he had people laughing. That to me was like, he was so different, which is why I think
it was inverted. Yes. Like with everybody else, there was their act, the crowd laughs, you walk over to get a drink of water, then you're back in your act. His getting a drink of water was his jokes. And then he did it opposite.
Exactly.
So
right.
unless you had watched a ton of comedy, I don't think it made sense how his brain was. It was like he was literally up is down, black is white, right is left. The whole thing was on its head. And I think that's why he was just so fucking
Bill. I remember
to this day I still can't even explain why what he was doing was funny. What he was saying. I saw one time. I always tell the story. The one thing I really vividly remember was one night he went up there and described his dream 2-bedroom apartment, and all he was saying was details.
Yeah, but that's funny coming out of his voice. That's funny.
Stepping down into the living room.
Apple cider vinegar. Like, why does that?
Cider vinegar. Yeah, doing all stuff like that.
Bill, you know, one
Fruit
time,
bowl on the table might be real, might not be.
negative energy, arms crossed. Negative energy, arms crossed. I
Energy
saw him
arms
one
crossed.
time,
Yeah, I can't
dude,
even.
in Seattle. Yeah, at the old Comedy Underground. Did you ever play the old Comedy Underground?
I played that one that guy. He used to give you a shoebox full of cash at the fucking end of it. That guy Terry.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
that
that
him?
was Giggles. That was
Yeah, that
Giggles.
guy was a character. End of the
Yeah, he was.
he literally gave you a door deal. So it was like all
Yeah,
fives and ones and 20s and tens all jammed together.
yeah,
It's just like, dude, what the fuck is this? I'm not going to the
yeah,
airport looking like some drug dealer.
yeah. And he used to say, "Count it up. I think it's all there." I'm like, "What? I don't." But one time in Seattle, Pioneer Square is where Comedy Underground was. Next to the Comedy Underground was just a place where there was a lot of homeless people, and there was a dude who was dressed like a clown, um, and like basically it looked like 15 years ago he had performed at a party as a clown and just never took the costume off and lived outside from that time. Do you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah, oh,
flower
that
just
could
kind of,
happen.
yeah, yeah.
There's something
Yeah.
about clown makeup that you can never quite wipe it off.
Oh no, it was
Actors play
smeared.
the Joker, they go crazy. There's something
Yeah.
about that shit.
It was smeared. He would push his flower and it just dribbled. It was sad, right?
Right.
But Brody brings him on stage one night at the Comedy Underground, the open mic, because he was always a very experimental dude. And for me, one of the things that is one of the things that I always admired about him, especially early on, to be such a young comic and be so experimental. I didn't have that kind of confidence. Do you know what I mean? To really go
Right.
up and try something that you pretty much knew was going to eat dicks was not something I had the capability to do. But he always did. And he brought this clown on stage, and I forget what his name is. He's like George, whatever. And he goes, "Everybody, this is George. You know, I'm sure you've seen him down here in Pioneer Square, but George, you know, I've talked to him the last couple of weeks, and he's always wanted to be a comic. So I'm going to give him my time for the open mic. And go ahead, George." And so there's, you know, about 30 or 40 people down there, and George tells a couple of jokes, and they're not funny, believe it or not. And but you know, the crowd thinks this is part of the gig. They don't think it's actually some homeless dude off the street. And George, you can see him, he's not holding it together quite as well. The no laughter is really starting to get to him. So Brody can sense that. And he walks up and he puts his arm around him and he goes, "Come on, everybody. This is George's dream. Let's give George a little energy." And George looks at Brody and he goes, "Touch me again and I'll murder every fucking person in this room." And I was like, oh boy. Yeah. You might have brought the wrong dude on stage.
And how did Brody handle it?
He was like, "George, everybody, come on, one more time for George." And he grabbed the mic and they gave him the light. And it was really, you know, he was, you could put him in any situation. I remember, dude, one of the gigs I was most excited to get that I bombed at. I was supposed to, a couple of years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, I was going to perform for the Dodgers. And I'm a big sports fan like you, and that kind of shit geeks me out a little bit. You know, if you're going to ask me,
Those are hard gigs. Is it just the Dodgers?
yes,
Yeah,
I didn't know how.
I've done one of those gigs. That those can be. You got to get them quick because they all know each other. I found what you do is you make fun of somebody on the team, and then they all love it.
But don't jump right into your material, which I did. It went so poorly. Tommy Lasorda got on stage after me and made fun of me. He was like, "All right, buddy,
no.
I'm just going to do 10 minutes." Not, it seemed like an hour, that last guy. How long was he up here? I mean, he was everything that didn't work for him. He was like, at least it's funnier than that last guy, right? I mean, he was,
Wow.
oh, by the way, rest in peace, Tommy Lasorda.
Oh,
but
did he pass? I thought he recovered.
I thought he passed. I thought I read that this morning.
Oh, did he pass this? Oh my God. He almost made 90 though, right?
93, I think he was.
93?
93.
Dude,
you know what?
That guy was literally
the face of baseball for me.
You look at that guy, if he had street clothes on, you like you managed a baseball team. Like he just him,
Yeah.
Don Zimmer, there was just some guys like Joe Morgan, a bunch of some big guys really passed away where it was just like, listen, I love listening to Joe Morgan, like his love of the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Like those guys that which I always love when an athlete gets in the broadcaster booth, if they're good. You know what I mean? If they're good, you hear their passion for their
Yeah.
game and for the game and getting excited for younger players
I
coming
love
up
Jerry
that they're
Remy,
going to
dude.
be good.
I
Jerry
think
Remy's
Remy's
the
great.
best. Rem Dog, yeah.
I think he's really good. Like I really, for especially for the people who watch the Red Sox, I think he is the absolute perfect color commentator. Like I think he's so good. And he was a Red Sox, and he was a Red Sox on some of those teams that you and I watched,
That was the
growing up.
first team I watched. I still remember it was Carlton Fisk, George Scott, Jerry Remy, Rick Burleson, Butch Hobson, Jim Rice, Fred Lynn, and Dwight Evans.
Yep. Yep.
That was the
And Rich,
team.
was it Rich? It was Carlton Fisk, not Rich Gedman, not yet.
No, Gedman wasn't around until there was also Gary Allenson.
Oh
would do some
yeah.
of the games. Muggsy, I
Who
think was
was
his nickname.
who was DH for that team? What year are you talking about? 78? Yaz? Was Yaz on that team?
Yeah. Yaz might have been first. George Scott might have been.
I bet you Rice, Scott, and Yaz kind of did left field, first base, DH a little bit.
Well, I know Yastrzemski was in left field when Bucky Dent hit that home run. He was the one who looked up and just,
Yeah. Are you when you think of Boston, you think Boston is a Red Sox town, a Patriots town, a Celtics town, Bruins? Like when you think of Boston sports, for me, I think of the Red Sox.
It's like any other sports town. Whatever team is hot, you're going to see that's the gear everybody's wearing.
Yeah.
Hockey's obviously huge, but basketball's huge. Like what I do love? I love that the sound of the old Boston Garden came over with the Celtics. It didn't with the Bruins.
Yeah.
I think with the Bruins, it's just the way that thing is set up and how big the ice is and how far away the fans are. It doesn't. But like with basketball, how you're right up there on the baseline and guys dive and they go into the friggin' crowd. It's like wrestling with basketball. There's like no barrier. There's the thing that I love is a sports intelligence by a crowd. And Celtics fan, like all the Boston teams have it. Yankee Stadium, old Yankee Stadium. What I miss is that sound in the playoffs. As much as I hated, the Yankees or whatever, like Yankee fans knew the game so well. They're the ones who started that clapping with 2 strikes.
Yeah.
Like doing
were you
shit
ever in
like
that
that. Or
stadium?
I remember watching a Celtics game and the officiating sucked and the crowd started chanting CBA.
Yeah.
And the fact that everybody knew about the CBA, and I remember what's his face, Bob Costas, loved it. He's like, oh, and the crowd is chanting CBA. He's like, that is high sports intelligence, So I always felt like, and it's what I got to be honest with you, what I crave living in LA is every once in a while I'll meet an old school. Like the last Lakers game I went to an old. They have a little cigar bar. I didn't even know that in the fucking Staples Center. So I went down there or whatever, like an idiot, and I smoked one. And there was a guy there, and I got to sit there as a Celtics fan. He knew I was a Celtics fan, but he loved the game. I loved the game, and I got to talk. We sat there and talked about the Showtime Lakers versus the Boston Celtics. And I was, we just talked the game, and I got to ask him, what was it like going to the Forum? And he goes, oh, there was nothing like it. This place, it's not the same. And it really isn't. Like these new ones are just so enormous. But the old school ones, it was just a court and seats.
Well, you got to remember,
surface and seats. That's all it was.
With the new ones, so much, I think, and I could be wrong because I'm wrong about a lot of shit, but I think so many of the seats are bought by corporations that it's not the real fans, especially right up and close to the court or close to the field. If you look at new Yankee Stadium, and sometimes you're like, there's nobody at that.
It's a travesty. And it isn't. You can still hear those hardcore Yankee fans, but it's just like, dude, there's some people, they go to the game, they just fucking eat. Because I got some of you hooked me up on time with those behind home plate.
Dude, that
seats
the food you can get at the new Yankee Stadium
was crazy. And it was a hot summer day, so I felt guilty. It's like, I got to fucking go out there. I got to, fill in some seats.
But there's so much good food back there. I took my dad to that new Yankee Stadium. And we got seats right behind. At the time, I was with an agency and was doing well enough that they gave a shit about me. So they gave me some good tickets, you know?
Mhm.
And so I was right there on, like, we put our beers on the Yankee dugout. My dad is wearing a Red Sox hat, right? He's wearing a fucking Red Sox hat. And we're walking in and I go, Dad, you know, somebody gave me these tickets. Like, I don't want to be disrespectful. This is like the team. And he was like, I'm 75 years old. I don't really care. And I was like, yeah, it's a good attitude. I like that attitude. He was like, what are they going to do? Is somebody going to fight me because I'm wearing a Red Sox hat? I'm like, no, you're probably right about that. I think we'd probably be pretty good.
No,
but
I like, because I wouldn't do that either. Like, I wouldn't, if I went
No.
to a Yankee game, somebody hooked me up with those tickets. Like, I mean, I root against the Yankees, but quietly. I'm not gonna be an asshole and ruin your fucking time there, you know, because that's happened to me. Took my mother to a Bruins game, Bruins Flyers. I should have known better. 3 Flyer fans behind me, 4 Flyer fans. Didn't shut up the whole game, cursing, just fucking assholes. And then we lost too. Oh, I was so pissed when I left. So I was just like, the way Philly fans do it, it really is an art form.
Oh, they're
They've
good.
just taken being a cunt to, like, you know,
yeah,
when someone like me is like, wow, I never thought to do that. That's a good one.
They're relentless is what they are. There's no quit in that Philly fan. If they're going to get on you,
you know what it is? It's all they have. It's all they have. They're starving for championships. It's like being assholes is what they like. The fan base has more of an identity than most of their teams most years, unfortunately, because I was a big Phillies fan. I love that 1980 team. And as much as I hated the Sixers because I was a Celtics fan, like, my favorite team of the 80s was the 82 and 83 76ers. Oh my God, I love that team.
Was that the one with Malone? Moses Malone on the team?
He was on the second one. Daryl Dawkins was on the first one. It was Mo Cheeks, Andrew Toney, going back, Dr. J.
Bill.
And
Andrew Toney killed the Celtics. Like,
and his nickname was the Boston Strangler. I was just talking to somebody about that. Danny Ainge still tells, I guess, horror stories about him. And there was no three-point line.
Oh, that dude killed the Celtics.
This is how much he killed the Celtics. If Mitchell and Ness ever put out an Andrew Toney jersey that I fit, I would buy it. And it's just that fucking guy. It was.
You know who else? Vinnie Johnson was the next coming of Andrew Toney. As soon as if the Pistons were playing, his name was Vinnie Johnson, right? That
dude. Yeah.
As soon as he stepped on the court against the Celtics, I was like, here's 35 points right here. That's like there's some.
The thing about him was Lambeer was such a douche. I couldn't take my eyes off of him. Like, Lambeer just had the star power. Like, he was like if Bill Lambeer didn't play basketball, he could have been the greatest heel in wrestling ever. Like, I don't think there was ever a guy that got under my skin the way that guy. I fucking hated that guy.
Have you heard interviews with him now? He's still.
No, now I love him. He's hilarious because my favorite thing was in that Jordan documentary where they go when they show the Pistons walking off, and, like, for some reason Isaiah's trying to plead his case.
Yeah.
You know, and trying to be like, you know, he's like, sounds like he's always running for mayor. And then they said to Bill Lambeer, he goes, "Do you regret not shaking hands with the Bulls?" And I didn't read. Somebody told me he said this. He's like, "No, fuck those guys. When we won it, they said we weren't real champions." And it's just like, I love that. He's like a comedian that's not apologizing for his joke or for his act. So, but I will say this: as much as I hated him as a player, like, I never saw a big man with that top of the key shot that he had. Top of the fucking key. Like, nowadays you see that a lot with these, you know, these 9-foot white European dudes.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't make any sense in the league back then that a guy as tall as him was that deadly from that far away, because all those guys were down in the trees just banging every night. And he had I also love Moses Malone. Moses Malone had, like, guard moves. Like, he'd do, like, the double pump and come up and underneath.
Yeah.
There was a buddy of mine who loved him from the Boston area, and he's just going, listen to that. No matter what the fuck he goes, they flip out about what we do, and then, like, Moses comes in a double pump reverse layup, and they're just like, Moses for 2. It's like, give it up for the guy.
But
I saw him
Lampier
in a cheesecake factory in Houston, Texas.
Oh,
Way back before. Obviously, it was a number of years before he passed, unfortunately, and I didn't want to bug him, but I want to say, like, dude, I'm from Boston. I'm a huge Celtics fan. I fucking loved you guys, and I would put the '83 Sixers in a fucking second up against the '96 Bulls in a fucking second. You underneath against Luke Longley? The fuck out of here. You still got Dr. J. You got Andrew fucking Tony. So there's their Jordan and Pippen. But Moses
is the big equalizer.
I'm not saying that they would win the series. Who knows? Yeah. But this whole foregone conclusion that the '96 Bulls would just mop the fucking floor. And I'm not shitting on the Bulls because they never said it. It's sports writers and stuff. And I think a lot of times that, you know, people look at like records and shit and they just go, well, you had more victory. They really do like that sort of numbers thing. Like, you know what I recently found out about the '72 Dolphins, which I think that's why the Dolphins never won again. I think that because they're cursed because of the bad karma of the '72 team, just rooting for people to lose every year and then toasting champagne and all of that shit, right? So that year they went undefeated. The winning percentage, they had one of the easiest NFL schedules in history. The winning percentage was like 390 something overall. And they played two teams over 500. Well, think about it.
Did you know
Jets sucked that year? Jets sucked.
Dude, when you talk about the Sixers,
sucked. Was it Colts? I don't know who's in the division. I should shut up. But
in the 72, I don't remember who was in there. But
well, the merger was only a couple years old at that point, so I don't know what the divisions look like. If only we had a computer, we could like look that up or something.
Yeah, but then I would have to really care.
Hey, I got to pick my daughter up from school in like 5 minutes. So
all right. Okay, so then do me a favor, man. You know, what I've been trying to do on these Friday podcasts is one of the things that obviously small businesses are being crushed under the weight of what the fuck is happening. So I've just been asking my guests if they have any small business, somebody they grew up with or something from their hometown or anything they'd want to promote to give these guys a little bit of a shine. I'm really trying to do that. So do you have a small business you would like to promote?
I got a little restaurant that I like going to.
All right.
You like fried chicken? Dinah's Chicken in Glendale.
Dinah's.
California. Dinah. DINAH''S.
Dinah's Chicken, huh?
Yeah.
Is it a hot chicken?
No, this is old school, just fried chicken. Everybody's into the fucking hot chicken now. This is just an old school. I don't mind hot. I used to go to that fucking Howlin' Ray's. Used to be a food truck right outside where I get my head buzzed back in the day when I still had a little turf on the field here. And I would come out and I could literally just walk up to it. Now it's in Chinatown. I mean, I'm really happy for those guys, but I went down. I'm never getting another one of those sandwiches.
The line is out the door.
Out the door, down the block.
Yeah.
Around. Yeah. You would think that they're fucking testing for COVID in there. Free test or something. By the way, wasn't that vaccine supposed to come out this month?
Yeah, you know, I don't know if they've been if they had a rollout plan that is working quite as well as they had hoped.
This is how conspiracy theory starts. Regular people cannot accept the fact that we are in fact this disorganized. We are not, we don't anticipate, we react. Because they're like, you're telling me that you could just have a bunch of people run into the Capitol? That's what we learned. That's what we learned.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
Before they started hijacking planes, there was no fucking, the early 70s, up until the early 70s, there was no security, no.
Right. Did I lose you? Oh, all right, there he goes. Well, we lost Bill. However, guys, I mean, seriously could have talked to that dude for hours. Howlin' Ray's is, if you live in California, Howlin' Ray's is, or if you live in LA, Howlin' Ray's is so damn good. But he was talking about Dinah's in Glendale. I have been there as well. A delicious sandwich. We're back.
Donut, you there? Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Ah, my damn headphones aren't working. I was gonna say back in the early 70s, somebody just called me for some reason. I couldn't get rid of the call, probably because I'm an idiot. But like they didn't have metal detectors. You could literally have a gun in your briefcase and just get on the fucking plane because no one had ever hijacked the fucking plane in the United States. And then all of a sudden somebody did it, and they were like, "Oh, metal detectors."
You know my favorite part, and I know you flew on these planes too.
Why isn't this? Hear you?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you. You sound like you're making, I don't know what a turtle sounds like, but that's what you sound like. I'm just hearing like cracking sound.
You can't hear me?
Now I can hear you. I think this is.
Do you remember, I'm losing him again. Do you remember and I remember even at a young age knowing how ridiculous it was, having a smoking section on a plane, like the smoke didn't make it up. But my dad, because the seats right in front of the smoking section were super cheap. So he used to always buy those seats, but he was like, no, the smoking section is back there. So you guys will be good. I'm like, anything to save my dad, man. We never let him now book a hotel because if he can save, I remember because I took him to the Masters. One of my honestly, for me, the best part about this job is being able to do things for people that I love that they wouldn't normally be able to do themselves. Do you know what I mean? Take my dad to the Masters. Jacob got to be a bat boy for the fucking Red Sox. He had dude, right?
Take him to a coke-fueled orgy in the Hollywood Hills. I mean,
that's a great idea.
Stuff you dream about taking your uncle
That's a great idea.
Dude, I gotta go get my kid. I can't be that parent that gets there last so she doesn't think I love her.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you doing this.
It only took us 3 years to make it happen.
We figured it out, dude. Thank you so much for coming by, dude.
No worries. All right, brother. Thanks for having me.